Adding and editing list items in the client object model, especially the managed implementations of the client object model, is virtually the same as it is in the server object model. The only real difference is the use of the list item creation information object, and pretty much the only thing that that's used for is to set the folder URL if your lister library has folders. So let's jump right into the demo. I've added two buttons to each of our projects, the manage one and the JavaScript one. One to create an item and one to update an item. So to create an item, we go get a reference to the list. In this case, it's a task list. And then we create a list item creation information object. And we create the new list item by passing a reference to that object into the constructor. And then the rest of the code, again, is exactly the same as we would see on the server side. We just update the field values. So here we're going to call our task sample task. We'll assign it to the current user, and we'll say it's due in 1 week. When we call execute query, the changes will be pushed up to the server, and we'll have our new list item. And then to update, the first thing we'll do is we'll go get an item to update. So I'm just doing a camel query where I've set the row limit equal to 1, bring me back one item. And then if we actually got an item, because the list may be empty, then we're going to update the status property to in progress, and we'll set the percent complete property or field value to 10%. Again, we'll call update and then execute query, and that'll push those changes up to the server. So if I get it a full screen and we go over to our demo site, we can see there is the task list, and right now it's empty. So we'll come to our application, we'll hit F5, we'll click create item 2-3 times, and then come back over to here, hit F5 to refresh, and there you can see we have 3 tasks, all named sample task, all assigned to Rob Windsor, and all due 1 week from the date of recording of this section. And then if I come back over to my project here and click the update item button, and then come back to our list and hit F5, you can see that the first item here is now in progress with 10% complete. Over here on the JavaScript side, the code to create the item, basically the same thing. We get a reference to our task list. We create our sp.listItemCreationInformation object. We use the add item to actually create the item. And then we set the field values. Now, the one little tricky thing here was to try to do the date math in JavaScript. So this is the code here that I use to get the date 7 days from now. And then I set that into the item here. Call execute query async, and that pushes our item up to the server, and we have the new item. And then over here in the update item, the first thing I do again is go to the task list and get one item. And I need to execute the query for that. Once the response comes back, then I can see, did I get an item? Right? And if I did, then I'm going to go get that item, and I'm going to update its status to in progress, and its percent complete to 10%. Call update, call execute query async again, and then we should have our changes. So I've already started SharePoint Manager. There's our task list. It's currently empty. So let's just go ahead and run our app. Click create item 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. Come back over to SharePoint Manager. Refresh. There are 3 items. You can also see the information over here in the grid view, usually. Let me just refresh the list. And then click on that and the grid view. There we go. So we can actually see the data in a grid view format if we want. But for our purposes, the browser is just fine. And then come back to our app here, click update item, and come back over to SharePoint Manager and right click and refresh. And there you can see now the first item again in progress and 10% complete.